I think life is only as good as the people you get to share it with. I've often said I'd rather pick up trash on the side of the highway with my best friends than have a 50-yard line seat at the Super Bowl by myself. So I grew up in Tri-Cities, Richland, Washington, home of the Richland Bombers. Ran cross country, wrestled, ran track. I wanted to earn some money for college, and so I'd actually picked up 3 jobs that summer. The day it happened, it was July 7th of 2004. I was painting, 50, 60 hours a week. And I was just reaching up to paint the eaves. It was a 2-story home. I just kept leaning over, and I just lost track of the edge of that first floor, and I stepped right off. I don't really remember a lot of this, just to be candid, but there were these concrete steps right below that, and so that's when I split my head open, which is why I have that scar on my head. So I had a traumatic brain injury and paralysis from the chest down. Life was just very heavy. It was very heavy. I felt very alone, very isolated. And I've always said, it's not the paralysis that gets you, it's the complications that arise from it, whether it's infections or skin issues. I'd ended up with a seroma, which is like basically an abscess in my left hip. The surgeon was like, at first he was like, hey, you may not survive this. Candidly, in a way, I'm surprised I've survived this long, to be honest. They didn't know how bad the brain injury was. I remember my first session I ever had with I think it was a speech therapist. She told me, she goes, I don't know if you'll be able to go to college. And that really fired me up. It was really a miracle that I actually found Outdoors for All.
I think it was winter of 2022. I walked in and someone had told me, you have this new guy you're working with this year, and didn't know what to expect.
When I met him and I saw him ski, I didn't know his whole story, and I assumed that he had been skiing for 10 years, and then to find out he was only a couple seasons in, I was just totally blown away.
I just remember the first time I remember being scared, really scared.
I think Nate is one of the most determined people that I've ever met. He's always asking questions, he always wants to challenge himself, and you can just see if he doesn't get something just right, he's gonna try it again and try it again.
He teaches you to really be stoked in the day. You come in the morning and it might be a wet day out or something, and he comes in, he's like, oh brother, are you ready today? Oh, it's so good to be here. And then he brings you into this bear hug. And then you're just like, all right, we got Nate, we're gonna go have some fun today.
The joy that I feel when I'm out there with those guys is it's probably my favorite thing to do. Probably my favorite thing on earth to do. And you combine that with the camaraderie, just the fresh air, fingers crossed for a bluebird day, right? I remember after that first season going, man, these guys had such a huge impact on my life. This brought me so much joy. They really inspired me to volunteer myself, actually, on the Nordic side. A couple guys I work with, Ian and Gabriel. I ski with them, yeah, I'm their instructor, and I got to guide Gabe on his first race, which was huge for me. And just seeing the gratitude from his dad, how much it meant to his dad. His dad came over to me and he said something to the effect of you're changing people's lives today. It is emotional for me, working with those guys, because I understand their struggle. Love being able to see it. I first saw as a participant, still am a participant, as a volunteer, which I love doing, and then as a board member as well.
But it's been an amazing experience, I think. Just going out from a level of change from instructor to participant to honestly in very short time going to a real meaningful friendship that goes much further beyond just the ski slope, in my opinion.
It's not just about taking a run down the mountain. It's all about riding up to the mountain with your friends and getting ready in the morning, and everybody being there for the morning briefing and sharing lunch together and being on the lift together. I think Outdoors for All is the perfect embodiment of that.
He's an incredibly humble guy. I was listening in earlier to some of the stuff he was telling you guys, and I was like, I didn't know that. So obviously a ton of accomplishments, but is very humble about it.
I got into swimming after my accident and realized hey, you're not bad at this. You could make the US team. And so I ended up swimming for the U.S. team in the Pan Am Games in 2011. I came close to making the Paralympic team in 2008. I did Alcatraz without a wetsuit in 2010. I did the Golden Gate Bridge without a wetsuit in 2012. Went back and did Alcatraz again in 2016. I think I broke 3 American Paralympic records my first year at USC.
When you think you've hit a wall or something, you meet these folks that are absolutely incredible. You meet a Nate and you think, wow, I could work so much harder. I could put in so much more effort.
You know what, it's not just about the participants, but it gives the volunteers and everyone involved a lot of hope. It gives them engagement, it gives them community, it gives them camaraderie. It gives them an outlet, in my opinion, to live out their finest values. It gives them the opportunity to give back. I think Outdoors for All to me represents the best of humanity. What serving our community should look like.